Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon. Welcome back to Marotta Media. So, I've been gone for a while. I apologize for that. It's just been a very hectic few weeks. I'll just say that work has been pretty insane lately, and I've been very tired, but that has not stopped me from watching movies, because in my absence, I have watched quite a few movies. And there were quite a few movies that came out in the last month that I really wanted to talk about. And since I do not have time to dedicate an individual video to each movie that I want to talk about, I decided to put them all in one once again. So today I will be making another triple review. But anyway, let's get right into it with the first movie. And the first movie that I wanted to talk about today was Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen is a musical based off the Tony Award-winning stage play of the same name, and this movie tells the story of a social outcast named Evan Hansen, who is thrown into the spotlight and put on a journey of self-discovery when one of his classmates commits suicide. So this is yet another musical that has come out this year. This is the year of movie musicals. There's been musicals I've loved, musicals I liked, and musicals that made me want to commit seppuku. But I was excited for this movie because I guess you could say I am a fan of the play. I've never actually seen it live, but I've listened to a lot of the songs on the soundtrack numerous times. And I guess I was the only one because a lot of people really did not like this movie. And that's okay. People don't have to agree. You can dislike this movie, you can like this movie, that's fine. What I have a problem with is when people are a little too harsh in their criticisms. And that must be rich coming from me, because I'm the same guy who just shit all over the new Cinderella movie for 20 minutes. But when I hear criticism saying that Dear Evan Hansen is worse than Cats, that's a bit much in my opinion. But I don't think Dear Evan Hansen was that bad either. In fact, I kinda liked this movie. Please don't hate me for that. This is my opinion, and like I said, you have every right to disagree with me. So let's just get the obvious out of the way first. In this movie, the character of Evan Hansen is supposed to be a 17-year-old high school student, and the actor who plays Evan Hansen, Ben Platt, who originated the role on Broadway, is clearly not 17. At the time of this movie's release, Ben Platt was 27 years old. I don't know how old he was when they shot this movie, but yeah, he's clearly not in high school. But that being said, I really thought that this would distract me a lot more, but eventually I kinda just got over it. It really didn't distract me as much as I thought it would. I kinda just forgot about it and just enjoyed the movie. But the reason that he was cast is because he was the original actor who played Evan Hansen on Broadway. And I think the director himself even said that this movie wouldn't have been made if he wasn't the star. So I perfectly understand why they did it, because I truly thought that his performance was really good in this movie. He really embodies the character of Evan, this socially awkward kid who's just thrown into this terrible situation that he can't get out of. In fact, I think the acting by all in this movie is really good. Caitlin Dever, or Dever, I'm not really sure how her name's pronounced, Julianne Moore, Amy Adams, they all did a really good job, I think. And since this is a musical, like I've said in the past, I expect everybody know how to sing, and they do. Amy Adams doesn't sing a whole lot, but she definitely knows how to sing because she did a really, really good job in Enchanted. But to my surprise, Caitlin Dever and Julianne Moore also did a fantastic job when it was their turn. But the songs themselves, I think, are really, really good. They don't sound that much different from the original Broadway recording, but I'm okay with that because I didn't really expect them to sound a whole lot different. Because the songs themselves are great. Regardless what you think of this movie, I think we can all agree that the music is really well done. And there is a new song called The Anonymous Ones that gives a lot more depth to some of the characters who didn't get as much time to shine in the play. But one of the criticisms I've seen towards this movie is that Evan himself is just a horrible person, because he's doing something that is very morally incorrect. And if you're not familiar, the student who kills himself is named Connor, and he is also a social outcast much like Evan. And Evan has a cast on his arm from falling out of a tree, and so Connor signs it, and he even says, "Now we can both pretend that we have friends." But Connor finds a note that Evan wrote to himself, which is an assignment that his therapist gave him. And after seeing this note and seeing his sister mention Zoe, who Evan has a crush on, Connor thinks that Evan is mocking him. And so as a result, Connor kills himself, and a lot of people think that Evan was his best friend. But instead of telling the truth, Evan decides to go on with the lie that he and Connor were friends. And yes, that is an incredibly scummy thing to do. I mean, you would expect him to just tell the truth, but he is a very socially awkward boy, and he doesn't really know what to do. But at no point did I ever feel that the movie was sympathizing with Evan. It fully acknowledges that he is not doing the right thing in this situation. And the ending of this movie really leaves it up to the audience to determine how to feel about him and what he's done. But I personally loved the ending of this movie because they switched it from the play. But the reason I liked it is because accountability was taken for the actions that were done. And in the play, that didn't happen, so it kind of gives this vibe that Evan wasn't punished at all for what he's done. But the movie switched that, and I think that was a very smart choice. But that being said, this movie is not perfect. Yes, I enjoyed it, but it's not great. Because there are quite a few times where Evan just comes off like an absolute asshole. Like, seriously, there are moments where I'm just like, dude, like, you're a fucking prick. Like, what is your problem? The editing is also very weird in moments. For example, the very first song we hear, Waving Through a Window, which is probably the most famous song from this play, there are moments, when Evan says, "I'm tapping on the glass." Excuse my horrible singing voice. But when he says tap, 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 the scene cuts every time he says that, and it didn't work. Like, I know what they're going for, but it just wasn't great. It didn't work in this case. And I thought this movie was a little bit too long. It's almost 2.5 hours, and I really don't think that runtime was warranted. It did tend to drag on a little bit, so I think it could have been shortened. But overall, this movie, I enjoyed it. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, like a lot of people are saying it was. Like I said, you can dislike this movie, I'm totally okay with that. It's just the over-the-top criticism that annoys me. But in the end, I was just entertained by Dear Evan Hansen, and I mean, that's really all I can ask for. It's not perfect, it's not a superb, outstanding masterpiece, it's just good. It's a good movie, okay? But overall, I would give Dear Evan Hansen a 6 out of 10. And the next movie that I'm going to talk about is the newest Marvel movie, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So Venom, Let There Be Carnage picks up right where the 2018 movie left off. There was a post-credit scene where we are introduced to Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson, who is also Carnage. And in this movie, Eddie Brock hopes to reignite his career by interviewing the famed serial killer. But a brief violent encounter leaves Cassidy with the symbiote and turns him into Carnage. Now, I was not a fan of the 2018 Venom movie. It was very tonally uneven, just all over the place. Riz Ahmed as the villain Riot was completely miscast, and the script was just awful. It wasn't a good movie at all. So I went into Venom Let There Be Carnage with very low expectations. But not only was this movie worse than its predecessor, this is one of the worst movies that I have seen all year. And the biggest reason that it was so bad is because it was completely unfocused. Instead of focusing on the conflict between Venom and Carnage, it chooses to focus on Venom and Eddie's relationship. Because the two of them are just bickering, they're completely different personality-wise, and they're just not getting along. So they're fighting like an old married couple, and you could tell that the movie thinks it's absolutely hilarious by doing this, but it's not. The only times I ever laughed during this movie was at moments where I just said out loud, "This is so stupid." But the reason they're fighting is just completely ridiculous. Because Venom is like, Eddie, I want to eat people, and you're not letting me. And Eddie's like, no, you're not gonna eat people. You can't do that, because that's wrong, so eat chickens. And Venom is like, but I don't want to eat chickens, Eddie. I'm tired of eating chickens. I want to eat people. The 2 chickens that we have are pets now. I named them Sonny and Cher. Isn't that funny, Eddie? Yeah, that's basically why they're arguing. Venom wants to eat people and Eddie won't let him. Ha ha. But you'd think that more focus would be put on Carnage, since, you know, his name is in the fucking title of the movie. But I could see why they didn't focus on him, because his character is just completely butchered. When we find out more about Carnage and his backstory, it's just whittled down to this 30-second cartoon where Eddie is reading this card that Cassidy wrote to him. And I also guess that Carnage has a girlfriend played by Naomi Harris. I don't remember her name. I don't really care because her character was terrible. But she has this power to scream really loud, so I'll just call her Screaming Lady. But you're supposed to care about Carnage's relationship with Screaming Lady, but you really couldn't give a fuck about it. And the way that Carnage came about didn't really make any sense either. Eddie is visiting Cletus Cassidy in jail, and he starts mocking his family, and Venom, for some reason, gets really pissed off by this and attacks Cassidy, and in the fray, Cassidy bites Eddie's finger, and he's like, "That's not blood, Eddie Brock. I've tasted blood before, and that is not blood." And so somehow, this little bite of blood that he has makes him Carnage, I guess? But I guess Venom is familiar with this because when he sees Carnage for the first time, he hides and cowers, and Eddie's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, that's a red one. Those are bad. Red ones are not good news, Eddie." But what makes red ones so dangerous? It's never mentioned. Like, Venom just says they are, so I guess we need to take him for his word, I guess. And this movie is also just riddled with plot convenience, because when Cletus Cassidy escapes from prison with the symbiote, Eddie decides to go looking for him and look for clues as to where he might have gone. So he goes to the asylum where he and Screaming Lady were kept when they were teenagers, and as soon as he enters the abandoned asylum through a gate, he sees their initials carved on a tree. It's literally right there. Like, oh wow, that's convenient, isn't it? But this next part is one of the most ridiculous parts of the movie. So when Carnage escapes from prison, he goes to a gas station and he enters the convenience store and just casually kills the clerk behind the counter, and he hacks into his laptop. But how does he hack into his laptop? Does he have some sort of hacking skills? No, he literally just summons the symbiote from his fingers and hacks into the computer. And the information he's looking for is just readily available right there for him. This movie also has just total rehashes of previous Spider-Man movies, because the main conflict of this movie is basically Spider-Man 2. Peter Parker is wrestling with himself, or in this case his alter ego Spider-Man, and he feels that he can't continue with it. And that's what this is. Eddie's like, "I can't continue being with you, Venom, so you need to leave." There's also a fight scene that takes place in a church, and then a bell starts ringing. And if you know anything about the character of Venom, you know that the symbiote is like sensitive to loud noises. And that's exactly what happened in Spider-Man 3. When Peter is trying to take the suit off his body, the bell keeps ringing, and the symbiote gets scared by it and leaves. And there is also a moment in the same scene where Screaming Lady is like falling down and Carnage is trying to catch her, and it's all in slow motion. That's literally the same scene where Gwen Stacy is falling from the bell tower in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So not only is this movie ridiculously stupid, it's ridiculously unoriginal as well. And once again, just the PG-13 rating just completely holds this movie back. Venom is a character who eats people, but instead of seeing that, we just see people die off screen. As soon as they're about to die, it just cuts away. That is not how you do it. And I also can't talk about this movie without talking about the end credits scene, so I'm gonna mention it here. But the movie's been out for a while, and if you don't want the end credits scene of Venom Let There Be Carnage spoiled for you, then here's your warning, so skip to this part of the video. So Eddie and Venom are at this, tropical resort, and then this weird, cataclysmic event happens where, all the electricity shuts off. And in the background, you can hear J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. And at this point, I was like, oh, you did not. Please tell me you did not. And they did. And we see the TV showing Tom Holland as Spider-Man. So this movie basically picks up where Spider-Man Far From Home left off when Mysterio revealed to the world who Spider-Man was. And this scene makes absolutely no sense. I know that this is supposed to be the moment in, the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer where Doctor Strange, brings all the multiverses together. But in the scene, Venom is like, he looks tasty. And then he starts licking the TV. But why is Venom, obsessed with this guy? He doesn't know who Peter Parker is. He doesn't know who Spider-Man is. So why is he drawn to him? See, in the comic book, I believe the symbiote was drawn to Peter because it was hosted by him first and then left him and then, went to someone else. So he wants revenge on Peter for that. But in this movie, he just sees him on a TV and he's some dude he doesn't know who's revealed to be another dude that he doesn't know. So why the fuck does he care? It doesn't make any goddamn sense. So maybe we'll be seeing Venom in No Way Home in a few months. Who knows? But overall, this movie was not good. It was a completely unfocused, boring, dumbed down mess. And overall, I'm gonna give Venom Let There Be Carnage a 2 out of 10. And the last movie that I will be giving my thoughts on in this video is the newest James Bond film, No Time to Die. This is the 5th and final installment in the Daniel Craig James Bond saga. And I am a big fan of these movies. I watched all of them before I watched this one in preparation, and I think this is a pretty solid set of movies. Casino Royale is a phenomenal intro to Daniel Craig as James Bond. It really steered away from those old James Bond tropes that we were used to from the past. However, Casino Royale's sequel, Quantum of Solace, was easily the worst film of all of these. Just a convoluted mess. I barely had any idea what was happening in that movie, but that was also due in part to the editing being absolutely terrible. Truly one of the worst edited action films I have ever seen. Then following that up was Skyfall, which is easily my favorite James Bond movie ever. When I rewatched that movie in preparation for No Time to Die, I honestly think I could have restarted it and watched it again. I think that is a nearly flawless film. Roger Deakins' cinematography, Sam Mendes' direction, just a really intriguing story, a very memorable villain played by Javier Bardem. And then Skyfall's sequel was Spectre, a movie that a lot of people didn't like, but honestly, I didn't mind it. I really liked the tone of that movie, and while very underutilized, I really enjoyed Christoph Waltz as the antagonist of it. And now we move on to No Time to Die. And this movie is pretty damn great. No Time to Die has one of the better Bond intros that I can remember. It opens with James and Madeline on vacation in Italy, and then he finds that Spectre is out to get him yet again. And so we're introduced to a pretty kick-ass action sequence just within the first 10 minutes. And James thinks that Madeline is somehow involved in this, so he sends her away and he says, "You will never see me again." And then after he does that, we get the classic Bond intro where the movie's theme song plays. And this song, No Time to Die by Billie Eilish, is a fucking fantastic song. The song itself, coupled with those surreal Bond visuals that play throughout the opening credits, is just top-notch. It's so haunting and beautiful, and it just perfectly matches this movie. I have listened to that song several times since I watched this movie, and I don't think I will get tired of it anytime soon. But it's not just the intro of this movie that has great action, because the action sequences are pretty memorable throughout. There's not a ton of them, but I really didn't mind that because I don't want non-stop action. You know, I want time to breathe in between. And No Time to Die absolutely does that. It knows when it needs to start blowing shit up, but at the same time, it knows when it needs to slow down a bit too, and I really admire that. But what I loved most about No Time to Die is I really think that Bond's character development throughout these 5 films has been just perfect. Because in Casino Royale, Bond was this very reckless agent who was going to get the job done no matter the cost. It really didn't matter to him if anyone died, if something was destroyed, if he blew his cover. As long as he got the job done, he was happy. And he really didn't have anybody in his life that he felt was worth living for. But that wasn't until he met Vesper, whom he fell in love with. But when she betrayed him, he decided that he was never going to let anybody get close to him again. But since that movie, he's become so much more responsible on his missions, and he really has someone worth living for again in Madeline. And it all leads up to an absolutely beautiful send-off for Daniel Craig. I won't give anything away in case you haven't seen the movie yet, but I will admit that the ending of this movie did nearly make me cry. It nearly got me. And it was a 2-hour and 43-minute runtime that led to this send-off. And not once did I ever feel bored. Granted, I may be biased because I am a big fan of these movies, and I think if they were 3.5 hours, I probably would watch them, but either way, it did not feel that long in the slightest. Some things that I didn't like about it was Rami Malek. Not Rami Malek himself, because he did a great job as this movie's villain, but the villain himself was just very underutilized. I wish he was more fleshed out like other Bond villains like Javier Bardem or Mads Mikkelsen. And if he was, I truly think he would have been a top tier antagonist, but in this one, he's just kinda there. He's the big bad guy that's gonna wreak havoc on the world and Bond needs to stop him. Not really a memorable character, and that really is a shame because Rami Malek is a phenomenal actor. And it follows some of the same tropes as the past movies, like Bond retiring and then asked to come out of retirement to help MI6. And I think that's happened 2 or 3 times in the previous movies, because he retired in Casino Royale and he retired by faking his death in Skyfall. So, like, how many times is he gonna retire and then come back? Like, you have to know at this point, dude, that you're not going to happily retire. But that's really all I had to complain about in this movie, because I had so much fun watching it. No Time to Die is just a hella good time and a tremendous send-off for Daniel Craig as James Bond. I truly will miss him as this character, and I hope that the next person who plays James Bond will be just as good as him, if not better. Because I may be biased saying this, but I think that Daniel Craig is the greatest Bond of all time. And that's not a knock on the legendary Sean Connery, because he was awesome too. And overall, I'm gonna give No Time to Die a 9 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this triple review. If you guys saw any of these movies, Dear Evan Hansen, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, or No Time to Die, let me know what you thought about them, or let me know what you thought about all of them if you've seen all of them, like me. If you guys like this video, then be sure to hit that thumbs up, and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my past reviews, then I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.